Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Sarah Connolly on the podcast. She's an NASM certified personal trainer coming to us all the way from the Great White North that is Canada. She's coming to us from Calgary. She's also a bikini competitor, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get started, I gotta say, what is the weather like in Calgary today?
It's a pretty typical Calgary day. It's just kind of blah, to say the least. It's cloudy and just kind of meh outside. We have had some beautiful fall days though, so hopefully September will be nice for us.
I was gonna say the same exact thing has really been happening here, where we have had, some blah fall days, but it's actually really warm here. I think it's like in the lower to mid 80s, which is almost unheard of in Minnesota at this time, although it has been like that sometimes. But before, I depress everyone with our weather because I have too many guests from the southern United States on where they just depress me talking about, the California weather that's always perfect. Why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what really motivated you to get in shape and adapt this healthy and fit lifestyle?
Well, I always played sports through high school, field hockey, volleyball, just kind of track and field, all the fun stuff. But as I kind of progressed, especially with field hockey, that was kind of what started me in the gym and in doing some resistance training and some cardio. I was playing for Team Alberta at the time, and I was also with a high performance team, and I was playing throughout the winter. And so we just really had to kind of maintain a good athletic overall fitness throughout the year for that. And so I started doing some weights in the gym and working with some friends and fellow athletes who actually knew more about what they were doing, and just kind of got started through there, and then carried that trend into university. I couldn't really prioritize actual varsity sports because I was taking full-time courses doing sciences, and my grades were my top priority, and I really wanted to focus on studying. So I played a few like recreational volleyball leagues and whatnot, but for the most part, I was kind of just in and out of the gym and just doing what I can. But I kind of went through a rough period in the first few years of university when I was just kind of like following the typical like Fitspos and like magazines and like all the myths and just the bogus information that's out there that tells you that carbs are bad and fats are bad, and like the food fears really started to set in. And I was a cardio bunny. I mean, most of the time that I was in the gym, then I was either running on the treadmill or doing like hit training, plyometric training, body weight, like circuits, just like super, super high intensity stuff all the time. And I was doing it at like 5:30 in the morning every day before I went to classes, and just like really pushing myself to kind of attain that ideal image, which at the time for me was skinny. Um, that carried on for a while, and I ended up dealing with some gut issues back then. And for the longest time before I figured out what was actually going on, I was just really sick and ended up losing about 10 to 15 pounds just because my body was not absorbing anything. Like, sorry to be a little TMI, but like I would eat something and it would just go straight through me basically. So it kind of worked against me as well because I got used to being able to eat almost anything that I wanted and not really having any repercussions of it. And with the whole like mentality that I was dealing with just trying to like be skinny and get that goal body, I was overtraining, under eating, just had a super, super bad relationship with food, really, really poor body image. Um, and then fast forward, I was actually diagnosed as celiac. So ended up doing a whole recomp of my diet, and just took out gluten. I also kind of found out just through trial and error that I was really sensitive to dairy. So I took out gluten and dairy and just kind of revamped things. And then, of course, once my body started to heal, I started to gain weight because, oh, surprise, like once your body's actually absorbing nutrients, you're going to put on some weight because you can actually utilize the food that you are eating. But at the time, because of the mindset that I was in and because of the habits that I had created, that really affected me mentally, and that drove me into binge restrictive eating. So I got into this really vicious cycle of restricting throughout the week. So, like, basically, I would go and do my crazy hit workout in the morning, and then my breakfast was half a scoop of protein powder and water. My lunch was veggies and hummus, and my dinner was a salad. And that would go on for a week or even multiple weeks, sometimes even a month. And then, of course, my body is starving. And then I would binge. And to be quite honest, like the binges, even though I ate a lot of food because my body was so depleted, they really didn't affect me physically that much. But then it's the whole mental cycle, right? Then you get into that guilt the next day. You wake up and yeah, you're retaining water, you're bloated, your stomach hurts, you just feel like crap. And so that was a really long cycle for a while. And actually, for a period of time, it did turn into bulimia. So I struggled with that for years. And then, kind of as I progressed in my schooling, my degree was in microbiology. So I was learning a lot about microorganisms and how your body functions, how your organ systems function, and just being the kind of like nerdy person that I am, I started doing more research about fitness and nutrition and started looking up to more people as social media kind of got more popular, like Instagram and whatnot. And I started following the more athletic type of female. My mindset and my goals really kind of shifted from wanting to be skinny to wanting to be strong. And I realized that what I was doing to myself and the way that I was eating and the type of training that I was doing at the time, that was not going to sustain muscle growth. It just, like, there's no way if you are eating in that severe of a deficit and overtraining and just obviously dealing with an eating disorder, dealing with that kind of poor body image and everything, like you are not going to make progress in the gym. So I really started to eat more, shift into actual weight training, and just started to actually work out because I loved my body, not because I hated my body. And that was a huge, huge shift for me in my whole like fitness journey. So that's kind of the long story of where I started, I guess.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome. That's such a great story. And one of the reasons why I was so excited to have you on because you posted yesterday about, another thing that you have right now with gut health and what's going on right now and how has that affected you?
So basically, I did two competitions this year, and so that was back in May. And to be quite honest, I felt like I was in a good place to do a prep when I started. I had been eating in a caloric surplus for a while. I had been training really hard and heavy. Like, I would say I've really been doing like true bodybuilding style training for the past 2 to 3 years, maybe approaching 4 now. Like the first little while, I was kind of still getting the hang of it and still kind of leaning towards that circuit training. But, anyways, I felt like I was in a good spot. I had been working with a naturopath actually for the past 3 years to kind of just do anything and everything to promote gut health. Like, you name it. I drink bone broth, I take collagen, I take glutamine, I take digestive enzymes, I take probiotics, I drink apple cider vinegar every day. I stay away from artificial sweeteners and just like processed foods as much as possible. Like, not that I like to deem any foods as bad, but I just try and really put into my body what's going to make it thrive and what I feel best on. And I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money researching and just doing absolutely everything possible to heal and get myself to a good place physically and mentally. And so when I reached out to my coach, Chris, I really felt like I was in a good place. And my prep, to be honest, it was amazing. I felt better than I did in my off season, to be quite honest. Like, yeah, there were hard days. Any prep is gonna have its hard days, days where you're tired and weak and whatnot. But I mean, internally, externally, I felt good. And for the duration of my prep, my body was functioning great. I didn't have any digestive issues or anything. Um, And for the first 3, 4 weeks coming out of my prep, I mean, I was very anal about my reverse diet. I didn't eat like an asshole. I had treats here and there, but, like, even after my show, like, I didn't have any cravings. I went home after my show and I had a big bowl of yams and a big salad. So I was reverse dieting and just, like, gaining weight very gradually. Like, my coach was actually just like, go have more cheat meals, like enjoy yourself. You're not even putting on any weight. Like, go just enjoy. And so I was just kind of living life and everything. And then a few external stressors happened in my life, just some family issues and some other things that I won't really dive into. But work stress kind of started to get the best of me, and that's another story for another time as well. But just stress basically started to really pile up in my life, and I've always held stress in my gut. It's just who I am. I either get migraine headaches or I get really bad digestive issues. And so it was about my prep ended. My last show was May 25th. And I would say by the beginning of July, things really started to go downhill. I My weight started fluctuating overnight anywhere from 8 to 15 pounds. Um, I would wake up and just feel swollen. I went to see my naturopath and I sat down in her office. She took one look at me and she's like, "You look so inflamed. What is going on?" And it seemed like no matter what I ate, I would get bloating. And I had actually, through my naturopath, I had done a food sensitivity test 2 years ago and an elimination diet, which I'm now learning through talking to Vince and doing some research is probably one of the worst things I could have done for myself. Um, an IgG food sensitivity test is actually a very, very outdated way of determining anything really for gut health. Basically, if you have IgG antibodies and those get flagged on your test and those specific foods that are high on a food sensitivity test, all that really tells you is, hey, these are the foods that you eat frequently. And especially if you have something like celiac or any kind of an autoimmune disease, like, and especially leaky gut, which is something that I've dealt with for a long time, if your gut lining isn't perfectly intact and those food particles get out into your bloodstream, your body is going to react to them. Like, they're not supposed to be in your bloodstream, they're supposed to be in your gut. And so, if your gut is not perfectly healed and functioning well, you're going to have reactions and you're going to have certain things that get flagged on a test like that. So, basically, what that did for me is it just really narrowed down my diet. I had a very restricted diet. And I mean, if you do your research and you hear people's stories, and like, especially like eating disorders and that kind of disordered mindset, restriction is what propagates that and what really creates those problems. And so, even though at the time I was doing it because I was thinking that I was bettering myself and I was doing it for my health, when I was speaking with Vince about this recently, he said that really anybody who is still doing those kind of IgG food sensitivity type tests and making you go through an elimination diet for, like, I eliminated those foods for over a year. An elimination diet, if you do ever do it, it can have value, but for a very short period of time. And so I eliminated all of these foods. And then after my prep, I was like, okay, well, like maybe my gut is back to good function and I can start adding things back in again. And that was a huge no go. Like everything I was hypersensitive to now. And then time went on and I started reacting to things that I wasn't typically used to being sensitive to, like things that I ate for my whole prep, like oatmeal and sweet potatoes were my two like primary sources of carbs. Any carb that I ate, I would balloon. My stomach just, and like even still I'm struggling with this as you saw from the photos that I posted. My stomach looks like I'm like anywhere from 6 to 9 months pregnant after I eat something as simple as cucumber, fish, and avocado. it's like my body just can't handle anything right now. Um, and yeah, like the inflammation, I'm retaining water like crazy. I feel very lethargic, very tired all the time. Um, Back in July when this was all happening, my anxiety got absolutely just out of control. I was having full blown panic attacks almost daily. Ended up having to take a stress leave from my job because of this. I work as an ultrasound tech, and um, not being able to concentrate and having panic attacks in a job where you're supposed to be with patients throughout your whole day. You're supposed to be interacting, and like you're supposed to be staring at a screen and finding things that can potentially mean life or death for somebody. What you find and what you write in your report dictates somebody's method of treatment. And so I got to this point where I was just like, you know what? Like I am not in a place where I feel comfortable putting people's lives at risk. Like that's not that's not my right as a human being to just play with that at all. And work stress is kind of another topic for another time that I'm going to address. I'm planning to start my own YouTube pretty soon, but I'll touch base on that in future videos. But just life stressors in general, if you don't have a handle on that and you don't have ways to really de stress and prioritize your mental health and self care, like for me, I always just thought, well, the gym is my way to de-stress, and absolutely it is. The gym is a phenomenal way to release endorphins and combat depression. Like they say, exercise is the most underrated antidepressant, and so it's amazing. Yes, the gym, I'm not going to downplay how beneficial exercise and physical health are, but if you don't integrate that with mental health, you're just asking for disaster.
100%. I mean, I always say, I've had some of the most in shape people on the planet on the podcast, and they say the same thing. It's like if you don't adjust your mental aspect, or if you don't adjust your mental health along with the physical changes that you make. I mean, I've had people that have been, like I said, the most in shape people on the planet, and they said, like, I may have looked great, but on the inside, I still wasn't feeling great. I mean, a lot of people started the journey because they want to make themselves feel better, but they realize that, if you don't adjust that mentally, it doesn't matter how you look. You can still feel not as good as you would if you learn to make those mental adjustments. So I mean, I love talking about that. But how also did that affect your training, having these gut health problems? Did it affect your the amount of times that you could train, or was it just something that you just had to push through?
Well, for the first little while, especially just like being in denial and like having developed this habit of training 6 days a week for the past like 8, 9 years of my life. Um, the gym is truly my happy place. It's the place that I go to really feel alive. It's the only place that I go where I don't feel judged. I feel like I can just be 110% me and I don't worry about what anybody else thinks. I can just be there and be working on me. And no matter how shitty I'm feeling, when I step in the gym and I get a workout in, even if it's not my best workout, I walk out of the gym and I feel 1,000 times better than I did when I walked in. So when everything first started, I was still pushing through and still training every day as hard as possible. And I mean, I remember times in July where like I would be wearing like my weight belt for like deadlifts or a heavy lift or something. And I would finish my lift and I would have to go to the bathroom because I was like regurgitating food because like nothing was digesting. And because of the pressure from lifting and everything, and being so bloated and like having my belt put pressure on my stomach, I was just getting sick. And I started really noticing that my recovery was just shit. Like if you've done a competition and you think that you feel tired after a workout in prep, I can't even begin to explain, like, in prep, yeah, like, there's those days where you just feel like a walking zombie, but when these gut issues started happening after my prep and got really severe, I would come home from the gym and I would feel like I just ran a marathon and hadn't eaten in like a week. Like I felt like every single ounce of energy in my body had just been sucked out of me. And I would stay sore for days. And like, don't get me wrong, I love feeling sore because it's just like, yeah, like I killed it. But I mean, being sore is not an instigation or not a way of actually like gauging how well you really trained. If you know anything about fitness and nutrition, you know that your body should only be a certain degree of sore and have a certain degree of fatigue. And if you're experiencing excess of that, it really means that something is off internally or in your diet, your supplements, your recovery, just like your rest, your mental health, like whatever that may be. So when I would come home from a workout and 3 days later, I was still sore from training legs and glutes when I was then training shoulders. I was like, okay, like something is not right. And it just seemed like the more I pushed too, the more my body pushed back. And so the more cardio I tried to do, the more I tried to lift, I just got to a point where, and I was very open with my coach, and I told him, like, I am just exhausted. I'm feeling depressed. My anxiety is out of control. I'm bloating with everything. Like, I can't handle carbs worth shit. I would try and, like, knowing what I need to train, I would try and have my pre-workout meal of oatmeal or sweet potatoes or use Vitargo or whatever carb source. And that would just make everything worse before my workout, make me feel like shit during my workout. And it was horrible. And so I told him this. And so we decreased my training to training every other day. And so that seemed to kind of help for a while. When I first took time off work, I was sleeping, no word of a lie, like 15 hours a day. I would literally only just like I would be eating and sleeping enough to just allow myself to go to the gym. But I just felt like I had been hit by a brick wall. Um, and like I said, my anxiety was just out of control. And so that kind of went on for a while, and I started really voicing my concern to my coach. And I said to him, I said, hey, like, I really feel like something is wrong, and I don't want you to take this personally, but I'm looking into other professionals who might be better able to help me with this. Because when I started, like, especially with the inflammation and everything, and like the scale was going everywhere, and I don't want to say anything negative about my coach because I truly think he's a great coach and he does have a really good knowledge base. But the problem with so many coaches in this industry is that they have a very limited scope of knowledge. They know a ton about dieting and training to get lean, to do body recomp, to prep for a competition, and all this kind of stuff. But they don't know how to prioritize the stress factors and the gut health factors and the mental health factors. And if you keep pushing people and training people for years and years and years, and you don't prioritize the other stuff, the internal health, the mental health, you're killing people. I'm sorry, but that's 100% what you're doing. And so when I started doing more research and looking for other people who kind of specialized in this and finding other people on social media with similar kinds of stories, I started realizing that something was really, truly wrong. Um, and so that's when I kind of started looking into Vince and Nutrition Dynamic. And I have my official intake with him on this Friday. So we've just kind of had our consult call, but I've watched a bunch of his videos, and he was just kind of somebody who I really felt like I connected with the second I kind of heard him speak, sorry, about this topic. And just through watching his videos and like reading his client success stories and everything, I relate so much to his clients and so much to him. And so yeah, that's kind of where I am now. Is I've realized that years and years of overtraining and under eating, despite the past 3 to 4 years really trying to prioritize my health, it's all kind of coming back to kick me in the ass. And um, hormones are another big thing that I really haven't touched on yet, but all my hormones now are in the postmenopausal range. I have literally next to no testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, FSH, LH. They're just all tanked. My thyroid is phenomenally well considering all of this. It's actually perfect. Um, but I've also been taking natural thyroid support supplements and really kind of trying to do everything that I can. But until my gut is healed, there's nothing that we can really do to fix my hormones for the time being. So, again, something that was really frustrating talking to Vince because I've spent so much money with my naturopath on all of these supplements to promote hormone health, and they've done shit all because my gut health is not where it needs to be. And if you can't absorb things and you're not properly metabolizing food and nutrients, you can't just put a band-aid on one thing and expect it to fully heal when the underlying problem is just a festering wound.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And if there's one thing that I can take from all this, though, that I love about having Canadian guests on is that they say sorry after every time something happens. Every time, as soon as I have Canadians on, I'm like, oh my god, let's do the sorry count and see how many times they say sorry. I had a brother who went up to Kelowna to play baseball up there during a summer, and he was just like, I was like, first of all, how many times do they say a, and how many times do they say sorry? And he goes, you would not believe, like, it is underrepresented in the stereotype, like it is, they do it more than people would expect they do. So I was like, oh my god. But again, that is such, I mean, that is just, I mean, thank you so much for talking about this gut health, because it's a thing that not many people talk about, not many people are aware of. But I think it can be a little bit similar, because I like to ask then, for people that do have gut health problems, is it sort of similar to, I love to ask the question, what is that like when you realize when you're competing that, I mean, after the show, you're not going to be able to maintain this look, like that look that you put on stage is not sustainable, because, we hear so many stories about people, if they didn't know that ahead of time, I mean, that can add to even more, anxiety and depression, knowing that, like, hey, this look that I present on stage, that's the best that I'm going to look for a long time. Is that feeling sort of similar to what you have now, where you're just getting a little bloated, where you just don't feel like you are in that much of control of your body as you sort of are after a show when you are going to put on weight?
Absolutely. I think that's a really important topic too. I mean, I had read tons of blog posts about post-show blues and like the whole mental aspect of post-show, and like especially coming from a background of having had an eating disorder and having had very poor body image back in my early 20s. Um, if you talk to a lot of people, they will say if you've had disordered eating in the past, just don't compete. And I think there is some truth in that. I think you really have to address it from a personal standpoint and like where you are now. And if you truly think that you can mentally and physically handle that. But I will admit, post show, I certainly experienced the post show blues. And it was like way, 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 way harder than I ever anticipated. And I know from a health and just overall well being standpoint that absolutely you cannot maintain that physique. But coming from somebody who takes a lot of pride in their body and being a perfectionist and very A type, like when you see yourself look that good and when you get to that level of conditioning and leanness, and like especially because of where I was in my prep and I felt so good. I truly, I mean, yeah, there are days where your energy is low and whatnot that I've touched on previously, but I felt amazing. And so, like, looking and feeling amazing, when that coincides, like, there is no better feeling than that. And so, like I said, my reverse diet was going incredibly well. I was actually very happy with how I was looking coming out of my show. I was gaining like a pound a week, which is very reasonable. Like 1 to 2 pounds a week is kind of what you shoot for with a reverse diet. And so like my muscles were filling out again and I was just like feeling stronger and everything. But once the bloating started happening, 100%, like when you go from being so meticulous and like having everything in your diet and your training work for you and you're seeing changes, positive changes daily, like it's phenomenal the changes you see during prep. But to go from that extreme to the complete opposite extreme and then some. Like when I said my weight was fluctuating 8 to 15 pounds overnight. I'm not a big person. I'm 5'3" and I stepped on stage at 106 pounds. So to go from like when my reverse diet was in progress, like 110 pounds, to the next day being upwards of 120 pounds, and just like my stomach being just rock hard, solid, feeling so uncomfortable. My legs have just been so swollen, and just like my skin actually feels like it's stretching. That's the only way I can really describe it. And I've heard people talk about this when people have bad post show experiences when they binge eat. Um, Obviously, you're going to get the bloating and you get swelling and water retention. And I've heard lots of people say you literally feel like you're going to explode, like your skin is going to split. That's what I feel like, but I haven't been eating like an asshole. I have been eating as clean, if not cleaner, than I was during my prep. And I've literally not been able to be eating carbs, which is really crappy for the time being, but it's just like my body, anything with any kind of sweetener or sugar or even just like clean carbs in general, I just turn into a whale. And so having prioritized or thought that I was prioritizing my health for the longest time, even though I was negating the stress and mental health components, I was doing everything and anything for my physical health that I possibly could, from diet to what I was drinking and water every day to the supplements that I was taking to my training and everything. To go from that to feeling like no matter what I do, I have absolutely zero control with how my body looks and feels is probably the most defeating feeling I've ever experienced. And I have spent so many days where I've literally just sobbed. I tried to go to the gym the other day and I was doing my warm up. I was doing lateral raises with 10-pound plates, and I felt like I was lifting 100 pounds. And I ended up going into the girls' change room and just sobbing for half an hour and leaving. And it was so just demoralizing and defeating to feel like my body is just completely rejecting absolutely everything that I'm doing.
I mean, that is just so hard to hear because, I mean, one of the things that a lot of guests that I have on talk about, the best part about post show is that, you can, your diet gets a little bit better. You can eat things that normally couldn't, but you can't, and yet you're still gaining the weight and getting more bloated. I mean, that's just, that just must be just so hard, and that just to add on to all the other stresses that go into this lifestyle. I mean, I just can't imagine what that must be like. But now, a stereotype that I always love to bust on this podcast, because I always say it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram. But there are still just so many women that have that fear where if they go into the gym and they pick up one weight, they're just going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And, I always say to that, first of all, I would spend my entire life savings just to talk to you for 5 minutes because you have found the secret that everyone and their brother's been looking for. I mean, the government would probably kidnap you and like take your genetics and use it to like populate the entire planet. But did you have that fear when you were getting started? And obviously you don't now, but how do you like to respond to that? Because I bet you still hear that all the time.
So I for sure had that fear when I was getting started, and it's just like I wanted to tone. I didn't wanna build muscle, I wanted to tone, and oh my god, when I hear that word now, I just wanna, like, put my head through the wall. I just first of all, you there's no such thing as toning. There is building muscle, and there's losing fat, and there's maintaining. There's like, toning is just lose that word from your vocabulary, please, for the love of God. Um, so yeah, I for sure had that fear. And then when I started doing more research and actually getting into bodybuilding style training and truly lifting weights and pushing myself in the gym, I mean, as a natural athlete too, I cannot tell you how hard it is to put on quality muscle. If you, as a woman, and especially as somebody my size, if you put on 1 to 3 pounds of muscle in an entire year, you are doing something very right. And so, I mean, you can go on my Instagram, you can look at my transformation photos, but it has literally taken years. And I kind of kick myself too because I look back at like how I started with just doing like so much cardio and hit and just eating in a deficit all the time and doing body weight and plyometric circuits and just like having that fear of being bulky and being unattractive and being manly. Like when I look back and I just think like what if I had actually spent all of those years really bodybuilding and actually prioritizing nutrition and like eating in a surplus, or at least you can build muscle eating at maintenance or eating in a very slight deficit, especially when you're a newbie. But with the amount that I was eating at the time, like if I could, I mean, I didn't track calories at the time and I didn't weigh my food, but if I can even just venture a guess, I was maybe eating 800 to 1,000 calories, maybe 1,200 calories a day, and training just like an absolute lunatic. And so, I mean, it wasn't until I got my degree and started the ultrasound program and had that kind of like base foundational knowledge in health and immunity and nutrition and fitness, then I actually started to realize how much I needed to eat, how much I needed to work on things like periodization in my training and progressive overload, and not just doing these stupid like following the Fitspos who just post their workout of the day. Like I was cleaning up my computer the other day and going through all my old workout files, and I have found these two folders termed just titled workouts, and I opened them and they were just images that I had saved from Pinterest that were just like the arm sculpting workout or the booty toning workout. And I look at it and it's like five, six, or seven exercises that are like banded or body weight or like very lightweight and just like plyometric circuits. And I look at those now and I'm like, girl, what were you doing? Like, no muscle will be built doing this workout. Like, there are zero gains being made doing these workouts. So, yeah, my advice to anybody who's starting out is if you really truly don't know what you're doing, hire a trainer or seek somebody who has been doing this for years. Like if you don't have the money, at the very least, go on YouTube and go on Instagram and find people who actually have credentials for one, and people who not the people who were born with an Italian booty who have walked around with a big bubble butt every day, or the people who had big shoulder caps since they were 13. Like, don't follow those people for building your shoulders and your booty, because not to say that they don't work hard, but they haven't
They
built
don't.
from
They don't.
zero,
They
right?
don't.
Like they have phenomenal genetics, or they grew up very athletic, they had that foundational muscle, whatever it may be. Find the people who literally started as skin and bone, or who lost a ton of weight and then built the muscle. Find the people who really had to work their damn asses off and prioritize everything from nutrition to supplements to training style to volume to progressive overload. Everything. Those are the kinds of people that you want to look at and take advice from and really say, like, what is this person doing that has gotten them to where they are today? But I 100% assure you that you are not going to get bulky unless you are taking a huge cycle of steroids and just really not actually doing this for your health. As a woman, especially, and as a natural athlete, you are not going to get bulky, period. I don't care how long you train, I don't care how much you eat, you're not going to get bulky. So just toss that fear out the window.
I gotta say, I've never been more mad on this podcast than when I had someone who was on, and you could just by looking at her, you thought that you obviously thought like there's no way that she's natural or whatever, and I didn't say anything. I never bring that up to anyone. I never said it. But then then she's like, oh yeah, all natural, and I was like, really? And then she's like, oh yeah, she showed me a photo she had right next to her when she was 8, and she had like an 8-pack, and she was just all. And I was like, okay, this is BS. Just like get off my podcast. It's like I'm done talking. She was just one of those natural genetic freaks where and
Yeah.
I have a buddy who's I'm 25, so I'm still there. But this kid, I mean, he can eat 7 or 8 Milky Ways a day and wouldn't even gain an ounce. And it's just like, screw you, dude. And he talks about like, oh yeah, am I starting to see like a little bit of flab there? And I was like, dude, you're like at like 5% body fat. It's like, get out of here. Like, I hate you. This guy's eating like milkshakes every day too. And I was like, I hope that God is just playing a really cruel trick on you. And then when you're like 30, like it all comes crashing down. But I was like, enjoy it while it lasts. But I'm 6'3", so I'm on the other end where I understand that muscle takes a little bit longer for me to grow too as well. I mean, I always say my biggest problem area is calves, just because my legs are just so long. Where I mean, I see someone with nice calves, and I'm always like, that's the number one genetic thing where I'm just like, oh my god, that's I don't even get me started on that. But one thing that I also love to talk about when it comes on to that, or when it sort of adds on to that question, is that I always say one thing that I think impacts women so much more positively than it does guys when it comes to working out is the confidence boost that it gives you. I mean, we've heard so many stories of women who have made life-changing decisions, or it's really just helped them out in their overall lives. How have you taken that confidence boost that the gym gives you and use it to impact your life?
For sure. That's 100% one of the biggest things that I've taken from fitness is just it's truly changed my life. And I will 100% say that the gym and actually developing my knowledge base in fitness and nutrition actually did save my life. Because if I really wouldn't have found that outlet and shifted my mindset from wanting to be skinny to wanting to be strong, I can almost guarantee you that I would still have an eating disorder and I might not be here today. Um, Being able to not only use the gym as a stress relief, but seeing my body change and seeing the results of years of prioritizing nutrition and actually like learning to feed my body, to fuel my body. I mean, I still have a lot of days where I don't like everything that I look at in the mirror. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that I love every square inch of my body. And I think it's really great what social media is doing now for like portraying self love and self acceptance and whatnot. But I think it's also being overrated and really kind of like downplayed in the sense that like women are posting these photos of like sitting over with their rolls or like showing that they get bloated or whatever and saying like just being real and like love yourself and like just like putting all these like inspirational quotes and stuff and like it's not that easy. It's really not, and I can almost guarantee you that 95% of those women who are posting that kind of stuff still have a lot of insecurities that they don't share with social media. And so, as much as I do want to promote that part of the fitness industry, and I think that fitness and nutrition are a great way to develop a better body image and just overall respect for your body, it takes just as much time as building muscle does. It's a work in progress every single day, especially somebody who is A type and a perfectionist and really I mean, I take pride in my body, but I also struggle too. And I can't even imagine what my life would be without the gym, honestly. Like to look back and see how just sad I was and how unsatisfied I was with not only myself, but with every aspect of my life when I was going through my eating disorder and like severe body dysmorphia and everything. Um, Getting into fitness was the best thing that I could have done for myself. At the beginning and for a while, it probably did more damage than good, but once I actually learned the ins and outs of it, it really truly started to inspire me to just be a better person inside and out. And I just I can't stress enough how important it is to prioritize your physical and your mental health. And going to the gym and eating the foods that sustain a healthy, thriving body and the foods that you need to be strong and sustain that kind of a lifestyle. I mean, there's nothing that can really replace health. And now that I'm going through all of these issues too, like it really has brought to light that you need to have balance and you need to really just I mean, you have to be selfish in some ways too. You have to really prioritize yourself. I used to feel so guilty for saying no to things, and now I've realized that it's necessary. It's not selfish per se, it's just promoting your own well-being. And so yeah, to go back to the basic question that you asked, my body image and my self-confidence has improved significantly since I started training, and it's one of the biggest things and the biggest reasons why I would recommend anybody and everybody. You don't have to be in the gym doing bodybuilding style workouts. You can hike, you can swim, you can walk, you can jog, you can horseback ride, you can do whatever, but physical activity in itself and prioritizing your health is something that you can't put a price tag on, you can't put a timeline on. Like, it's something that you need to do if you truly want to be living at your best.
I mean, again, such a great thing, and thank you again for talking about all this. I mean, it's so great. I mean, and I love these long answers that you take. I feel like a backup goalie, basically. I mean, my job has been so easy. But three final questions before we wrap things up. So, if you could change one thing about the health and fitness lifestyle, what would be the one thing that you'd like to see change most?
See, if you would have asked me this question a few months ago, my answer would probably be different. But now with everything that I'm going through and with everything that I'm reading lately and with the people that I'm talking to and going back to saying how prevalent these gut issues are and the topic of like burnout and just like anxiety, depression, exhaustion and everything is, if I could change one thing about the fitness industry, it would be to lose the go hard or go home mentality and to prioritize just the health aspect of it, really. Um, can you train 6 days a week and be healthy? Sure. But if you're somebody like me who is a high stress A-type person who really feeds off of other people's energies, who has a high-paced, stressful job, who is a perfectionist and always kind of a go, go, go individual, you need to prioritize your downtime, your sleep, de-stressing, just having some kind of a balance. And as much as the gym is a phenomenal outlet for that, you need to find other ways. I've spent years where the gym was really the only thing I considered my way to de-stress. But in recent months, I've been doing things like journaling, going for walks, not going to the gym and doing cardio, but like going for walks outside. Um, Writing like entries and articles and stuff for Instagram, for my own blog, like kind of compiling information to put together for my YouTube. Like researching is something I've always been very passionate about. So like doing stuff like that. Like I don't care what it is, whether it's reading, whether it's freaking basket weaving, whether it's like photography, like whatever. You need to have hobbies outside of fitness too, things that you can do with friends, things that you can do by yourself in your alone time that actually make you happy and allow you to reduce your stress. Because the gym, if you think about it really, I mean, working out is a stressor. It's a good stress in a way. You break down your muscles, you build them back up, and you create this level of stress that promotes healthy functioning and body recomposition and physical and mental development. But there's also a price that can be paid when you do that in excess for too long of a period of time. And I mean, I follow so many competitors myself who all day, every day, they just post boomerangs of them doing cardio and like their food on a scale and like, oh, I'm going back to the gym for round two or round three. And like, in prep, yeah, that's the life, and you have to make sacrifices and everything, and that's just, like, to get to that extreme level of conditioning, you have to go to extremes. But prep, it should be a short period of time in your training. If you are one of those people who is doing 10, 15, 20 shows a year, I mean, that's excessive. But even as a female athlete, like 5 to 10 shows a year, that is a hell of a lot of shows. That is a hell of a lot of stress on the body. Even if you're not a competitor and you're just training 6 days a week, maybe 7 days a week, even 5 days a week sometimes, but you're not actually prioritizing rest. And on your rest days, I mean, falls to the walls, going out, running errands, doing all these other things, not actually sleeping, and just kind of like doing all those other accessory things to bring yourself down and like calm and just come to a level of zen or whatever you want to call it. If you're not doing all that other stuff, I guarantee you, I don't care how good you feel now, and especially as a woman, I cannot emphasize this enough because men are lucky in a sense in many ways, but they
Guilty.
can they can endure a lot more than women can. And like if you look back, I was just having this conversation with somebody last night. If you look back to the beginning of time, what were men created to do? Men were created to be the hunters and the gatherers. So what does that entail? Men are created to be running, jumping, climbing, fishing, hunting, doing all of this activity. Women were built to reproduce and to take care of the family. And not that I'm saying that that's the way that it should be at all, because I'm a very independent, strong, active woman. But when you are overtraining and just going with that go hard or go no mentality, and you are doing that as a woman for years and years and years on end, especially if you're a competitor, something's going to give. Unless you are the 0.1% of the population who's a genetic freak, who is more kind of, I guess, masculine per se, in that you can handle super high levels of stress, you can handle super high levels of exertion, and your hormones and your blood panel and everything, nothing fluctuates. You just maintain optimal health. I mean, if that's you and you're that 0.1%, go for it. But that whole mentality, I think, is really it's killing people. It's creating these gut health issues, the mental health issues, the complete burnout. The cases where you see competitors who they finish their prep and they literally stop going to the gym. They don't just like take a week off or do a deload week or like go on a vacation. They lose their passion for training because they're literally so exhausted and so done, and their body is just completely rejecting absolutely everything and anything. This is where we're seeing these problems. And the society that we live in now, that's like the way our work industry works, where I mean, typically it's a 5 or a 6 day work week, and you get 1 or 2 days to get your shit back together and get back to work. And the amount of toxins that we have in our everyday life and everything, it's not sustaining these types of extreme lifestyles. And so, yeah, that's, I think it's the biggest problem that we're really going to see a lot of issues continue to develop from in the coming years. And if people don't start to actually take a step back and realize it, I think it is going to be truly life altering in not a good way for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with that more. It's just so fascinating to just hear about all that type of stuff. But out of your entire bodybuilding career, what is one moment that stands out above the rest?
Um, Honestly, I would probably say lately, just the the post-competition experience and the reoccurrence of my gut issues that I thought I had completely controlled and gotten a handle of, and really more or less just gotten rid of completely. Coming to the realization that I've been overdoing it in all aspects of my life, not just training. I have been pushing myself way too hard for way too long. And I mean, I really truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and that the challenges that you're presented with in life and everything the universe throws your way, it's all for a greater purpose. And so, just as much as I believe fitness and bodybuilding saved my life and got me out of a very dark time of my life earlier with my eating disorder, with bad body image and everything. I feel like it's possible that fitness is actually saving my life again in the fact that it's showing me that I need to prioritize self-care and I need to prioritize me and know that that's not like I'm not a bad person. I'm not crazy because I've gone through anxiety or depression. I'm not a bad person or there's nothing wrong with me because I enjoy a movie night in on a Friday versus going out to the club and drinking my face off. Like nothing nothing defines you and makes you a bad person if it's something that is truly making you happy and healthy and that you're doing for to better yourself. And so I've really started to learn that I need to take the time to make time with friends, make time for myself, and not just go to the gym, go to work, do all these errands and like all this other additional stuff and like working on your goals is great, but you need to have the downtime. You need to prioritize sleep and relaxation too, or you're never going to get anywhere in life. And if you do, you're not going to be healthy and happy when you do get there.
No, I totally agree with that. Where I mean, just the mental aspect and just focusing on so many other things really helps out with the overall picture. But is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Um, if I could shout a few people out that I really encourage people to follow, especially if you're in the beginning of your fitness journey, Emily Duncan, I think, is one of the most amazing people in this industry as far as knowledge in training and just like overall health and wellness. Clara Ship is a friend of mine who I've followed. She's out of Kamloops. Her Instagram is Clara Ship Fitness. She runs Shippy Fitness, and she's just one of the most bubbly, just outgoing personalities I know and really prioritizes balance as well in the whole industry. Nikki Korick is another close friend of mine from Vancouver. She's actually a nutritionist and she just finished her degree in holistic nutrition. She's a huge gut health promoter and just overall super knowledgeable and just incredible being overall. Jordan Kreller, her Instagram is Jordan Lift Love, is
I've been
actually
trying for
my
forever
friend.
to get her on the podcast.
She is actually the one who connected me with Vince.
Hmm.
So she's actually been going through her own gut and mental
Hmm.
health struggles as well. So I highly recommend following her. Again, her Instagram is Jordan Lift Love, and then my soon to be coach Vince Pitstick. That's also his Instagram, and then he's also with Nutrition Dynamic. I know the last name, I know.
I know.
But he's phenomenal and just so knowledgeable and somebody I really if you go on Nutrition Dynamics page and you go to their Instagram TV videos, if you're an athlete, if you're especially a woman, but if you're an athlete, if you are looking to better yourself in fitness and nutrition, I highly recommend going and watching every single one of those videos, especially the ones on hormones and especially the ones on the abuse of HIT training. Um, just yeah, overall, I those are some of the people I could sit here for days and list people that I love, but those are some of the people that I really truly love and respect their knowledge and their background.
I gotta say, I think we know why Vince Pitstick, why he got into bodybuilding and working out, because with a last name like that, you basically needed to be buff and ripped if you wanted to just to deal with all of that. But again, you guys, we cannot thank Sarah enough for coming on and sharing your story on gut health and all of that, because it's another thing that a lot of people just don't understand. And I highly recommend everyone go and check out her Instagram page and also her blog. I'll leave a link to all of that stuff down below, as well as all the other guests that we've had on. And again, Sarah, thank you so much for being on, and we wish you nothing but the best. And keep us updated on what your gut health is going like. And once you launch your YouTube, let me know also, and I'll leave a link down to that once that gets started. But again, thank you so much for coming on. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.